Fourth little section for education transformation relating to week 1, and in this section we're going to be talking about these key terms, learning and transformation. And this business of how learning changes is going to be important to us, but we need to sort of think about these key words first. So let's talk about learning first. So what is it? What is learning? How does it happen? How do you know you have learned? I think that's a really interesting question. How do you know you've learned? Is it because you get the test right, you get the answer right, or someone smiles at you? What role does learning play in your life? How does it change the way you see the world when you learn something new? And what's the function of learning? What does learning do for you? There's a few theories about this. One idea is that learning helps you feel good about yourself, to feel like you belong, that you can actually talk to all the people around you about things that are important. It makes you part of civilization, makes you part of the community. Then there's another sort of learning that means you can do the job, that you can actually learn so you can do what you're required to do in a workplace situation, or at university, for example. You learn how to do referencing so you can do the job. There's another sort of learning that is sort of a way of understanding, sort of through its origins in psychotherapy, that you learn to overcome your own limitations. You learn to overcome your fears or your nightmares or your anxieties, so you become a more effective person. And an associated one, we learn to actually change the world, to change the world we live in, to make it better. So there's a social democratic function here. We understand things so that we can actually stand up for ourselves in the world, so that we can actually make the world a better experience for us. But individually, what's your story of learning? How have you learned through your life? What experiences have led you to encounter the world differently as a consequence of learning? What have you learned? Where and under what circumstances have you learned? Are there environments that you've learnt in that are particularly memorable? Community or family or workplace environments or school environments? Who have you learned with? Are they your family? Are they your friends? Are they your schoolmates? And who's contributed to your learning? Which people that you know, or people that perhaps you know by reputation, who have contributed to your learning, to the way you see the world? The second word is transformation. So we're approaching learning for the way it changes the world and the world that you participate in when you are the learner. So what is this word, transformation? It's a very strong word. How does transformation happen? How do you know you've been transformed? And what role does it play in your life? These are the same 4 questions we asked about learning. But it's important that you develop the language to try and explain or give voice to your feelings about these particular things. How do you know you see the world differently as a consequence of your learning? And whose learning are you working with? Because there comes a time in life when your learning becomes your own, rather than that which you've absorbed from your family or your community. So the term we're talking about is transformative learning. And this is a lovely quote about it. Transformative learning involves helping people surface, question and reframe their stories when their current stories are disconfirmed or break down. When the way you understand the world is no longer appropriate or relevant, and you need to learn for new circumstances and new situations. If you've come to Australia from another country and you've had to change the way you think because of the way you've encountered this country. Or perhaps you've left your family home and you're out there making a life for yourself, supporting yourself, paying your own rent, organising your own transport, pursuing your own studies. You see the world differently because of that reason. You've had to transform your learning. You've had to change your story. Your current stories, your previous stories no longer are adequate, so you need to transform your learning. Now, one of the key thinkers in this area is a fellow called Mezirow, Jack Mezirow, and he uses the phrase, transformative learning develops autonomous thinking. Autonomous thinking means thinking for yourself. And the suggestion is that prior to people actually getting an understanding of their own learning processes, they relied upon the learning of other people, their friends or family, their community, to provide them with insight into the world. But there came a stage for the person who takes control of their own learning to realise that as an autonomous thinker, often the learning of the family or of the community is no longer adequate or sufficient, and you need to find out for yourself. Hence the need to transform. So this is the general territory we're talking about in this unit, education and transformation.